Today we're going to talk about the terminology of color and how to choose and use color. This is the color wheel, and it is a model that represents the visible colors. The primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. Secondary colors are halfway in between the primary colors. So green is a combination of yellow and blue. Orange is a combination of yellow and red. Tertiary colors are the colors that are in between the secondary colors and the primary colors. And they're often a hyphenated name, like yellow-orange, green-yellow. Now, putting combinations of colors together, you can use the color wheel. Complementary colors are across from each other on the color wheel, and they create a high contrast color scheme. Analogous colors are colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. An analogous color palette is versatile, pleasant to the viewer. Generally, you choose one color to dominate and use the others to kind of accent and work with that color. A monochromatic color scheme uses the shades and tones of one color. It's a nice harmonious color palette, but doesn't have a lot of contrast to it. Triadic colors form a triangle in the color wheel. They're bright and often too strong as a combination. Sometimes you want to separate those colors by white, such as red and blue don't always go well together. You want to separate those by white. There's a great interactive color wheel at color.adobe.com. So this is an example of the color wheel on color.adobe.com. So the middle color there is like the main color. And then if you look over on the left, you can choose what color scheme you'd want to show those colors. So in this case, analogous was chosen. So it gives you a palette of analogous colors. This is a monochromatic color scheme. So it is the shades, which is the darker versions of that color, and the tints, which are the lighter versions of that color, of the same color. This is complementary, a complementary color palette. Color.adobe.com also lets you choose colors from an image. So if you choose extract from an image, you can upload an image of yours and create a color palette out of that image. You can also use this site to use a word to search for different color combinations. So if you put in the word enchilada, these are the sort of color combinations you get. The site has color palettes that are uploaded by users. So users kind of choose some colors and throw them up there. So it's really kind of versatile. It's really interesting. And it's a fun place to play. So this is a screenshot of the color picker in Photoshop. So when we're talking about hue, saturation, and brightness in the colors, hue is the color that you would use. So if you were going to make pink paint, the hue that you would use would be red. Saturation would be how much red you would put in there to get the shade of pink you want. And brightness is how much light, white or black, you would put into the color to get, again, the exact shade of pink that you want. So the arrows show where you choose those things inside the Photoshop palette. Colors are also affected by the colors that are around them. So blue is a cool color, orange is a warm color, and that is the exact same color of green. So it looks quite a bit different. I use those same background colors and put a face on them, and you can see her face changes. She looks much more pale on the right than she does. Maybe the middle one seems to give her face a little more brightness. So two different color spaces are RGB and CMYK. RGB is red, green, and blue, and it's typically the colors that you see on the screen, whether that be a computer screen or a television screen. CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and that's the 4 colors used in 4-color process printing. So this is an example of if you had a flashlight and you had a green filter and a red filter and a blue filter on 3 flashlights and shown them toward a wall, all 3 of those colors added together make white. So it is called additive color. And again, RGB is the color space used on the screen. CMYK is subtractive. When all the colors are added together, like you run this through the printer with all those colors, you get black in the middle. In theory, you get black. A plain black is added to that to make it a pure color. Hence the K. But it's cyan, magenta, yellow. And if you have an inkjet printer at home, it has cyan, magenta, and yellow ink. And black. So gamut refers to the colors that are available in any given color space. So the yellow triangle is the RGB color space. So that gives you the red, green, and blue colors, and can be combined making red, green, and can be made combining red, green, and blue. The blue space there is the cyan, magenta, and yellow and black colors. So those are the colors that can be made by combining cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So the term gamut refers to all the colors that can be made inside that yellow triangle are the gamut for red, green, and blue. All the colors that can be made by CMYK are in that blue space. And that's the gamut of print, 4-color print. So in the Photoshop color picker, there are 2 indicators there. So the color that is chosen there is the white circle. The top little warning symbol means that that color would not print properly. But the little square underneath it is the closest one, Photoshop suggesting what color may print. The next triangle down means that that color is not web safe, which we will talk about in just a moment. So this is the WebSafe color palette. It actually is the 216 colors that are the same between the Mac and the PC. Back in the olden days when computers only displayed 256 colors. So this was developed in the 90s. And nowadays, computers and phones and everything display so many millions of colors that this really has become pretty irrelevant. So there's no reason to stick with this color. It's a color space that was developed by programmers rather than designers. So it's really kind of difficult to work with. But once computers started displaying millions of colors, again, this just kind of became irrelevant. So you can ignore it. Even though it's still addressed in Photoshop, it's not really needed. Spot color, and this is an example, Pantone is an example of spot color, is if you go to a print shop, you can specify a very exact color combination called a spot color. And then you're guaranteed the exact color result will print correctly. So a basic understanding of the terminology of color and how color works can lead to the best design choices.